All right. So today, Jubilee. Uh, this is a topic that's always been making the rounds, like always, no matter what time of day it is, and it's is being fat a choice? Well, it's an interesting topic to talk about because I feel like people forget that there's a lot of factors that can contribute to you being overweight, especially like genetics and all that. But in terms of making it better, then in my opinion, just for the opening of this video, yes, it is a choice. However, just because it's a choice does not mean there's extra baggage attached to it. But I want to hear what these people have to say, and then we can go from there. So let's get started.
Or skinny is a choice. Agreeers?
Of course.
Interestingly enough, actually, now that I'm watching this, I'm surprised that a lot of people. Well, I'm not surprised at the results, but I'm actually more surprised that no one's really like. That's the word I'm looking for. Like there's only 3 people who went up there to mention this, and it feels like it's an unpopular opinion, even amongst this particular topic. But I believe it's a choice just because something like your weight is something that is controllable. You can control how much you weigh. You can't control how tall you are. That's basically set in stone. No matter what you do, you cannot change it. But your weight, absolutely you can change it. That's why I believe it's a choice. So anything that's within your power to change, it's a choice. Now, of course, I'm not trying to discredit people who have to suffer like medical issues and all that, but I'm just saying there's never not a way to figure it out. Is what I'm trying to say. And I'm gonna say this too: losing weight is not easy. Okay, whoever tells you it's easy is actually very stupid because it's a commitment to lose weight, and especially how long it can take some people. That you definitely want to give up on that. But either way, what I'm trying to get across is that yes, it's a choice. However, just because it's a choice does not mean it's something that's easy to maintain.
Not every factor is purely choice. I don't think that every factor is, but I do think a majority of it is. And in most cases, for most people, being skinny or being fat is about willpower. It's about the environment you grow up in, sure, but who you choose to associate with, what sort of things you choose to listen to, who you choose to kind of have as your friends around you and support you. All of those things are choices that you can make that will lead you closer towards being one or the other.
I know what I do with my body. I know what I put into it day in and day out. I choose not to eat some days. I choose, how I want to look. And I don't fault anyone for how they want to look or how they want to be, but I think it's a choice at the end of the day. I'm very, always wish-washy on how I want to be presented and if I want to gain weight or not. But the only person that's going to gain the weight at the end of the day is me and me myself.
For me, it's calories in, calories out. Go to the gym, you'll get buff. Don't go to the gym, you won't get buff. I understand that there's genetics that could cause you to want to eat more, but even with the genetics that cause you to want to eat more, the same solution is calories in, calories out.
I think the whole choice is, always determined on who they are. And it's not going to just be a thing done overnight.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of, I think it's like breaking the barrier and breaking a lot of things, not only your body, but also breaking your mental state.
Sure.
And again, that depends on who you are and what you want to go through.
Disagreeers?
Now, I actually agree with mostly what was said here, just off the fact that whatever you want to make any form of change, it's on you to make it. Whether it's, going to the gym and all that, or maybe you want to change how you look, or you want to lose some weight. And then, they really simplified it. She said calories in, calories out. Yes and no, but it's also what are you eating? Are you taking a lot of fat? All of that. But what I was trying to say is that people in general, like what you see on the outside is usually a buildup of stuff that happens in their own life. And for instance, I don't know, maybe there's a tough time in someone's life, like a divorce or something. Like people could be stress eating during that time, or can't pay your bills. People might stress eat or do things of that caliber. Of course, I'm talking specifically in the non-genetics factor. But either way, there's also many resources that you can use to further yourself and try to lose weight. But to me, it's just that yes, it's a choice. However, the difference between you and maybe somebody who's always seems to be on their shite all the time is that the person who's always on their shite is the one who put in more work. That's the difference. And it applies to any area of life, really. For instance, we're talking about weight here, so the person who looks skinny with a nice waistline probably has to do just as much exercise as you do to lose weight. It's just the way it is. Also, everybody's body is different, so some people need more calorie intake, some people need less calorie intake, all that fun stuff. I can speak for me. I eat like a fat ass, and I don't gain much weight. So that's just for me personally. But yeah, no. So far, I pretty much agree, but I'm actually interested to hear what the other side has to say on this one.
As a toddler, I always viewed myself as big. I grew up in a very poor home, so where my mom couldn't provide the meals that she could healthily. So when we would get free meals, even then it would be canned food, and it would be very much food that's not as edible. It was food for us, yes, but then I felt like once it reached a point where I was old enough to try to make my own choices, I made all of the wrong choices. I wasn't eating, and I was only eating grapes and lettuce, and that was mainly because I was in a sport, and that sport just worked me out so hard.
Actually, I want to point out something rather interesting that she said. And even though she's giving her background and all this and talking about her childhood, she said that I made bad choices when I got into adulthood or whatever. Or she said I made that. It's very interesting because the question is being fat or skinny a choice? And she's mentioning this even though she's on the side that disagrees with this, which is really fascinating to me. Just because, like I said earlier, sometimes it's a buildup of what's going on the inside, which is a result on the outside. As you can see, she had a really tough time growing up, according to her, and which made her result to eating, unhealthy. Well, he's trying to eat healthy, and then, couldn't really lose the weight. And she saw that as, I don't have a choice but to be fat. And that's the thinnest she said she's ever been. Just want to point out that's really interesting, actually.
Woman, I can't do a lot of the things that people say, calories in, calories out, oh, you got to go work out and exert it. A lot of the things that are typical, oh, this is how you lose weight, put me in the hospital. I have to navigate weight differently. I have to look at it differently. My weight is the way it is because of medication, because doctors put me in this position. And I had to learn, okay, am I going to be so hateful of my own body that I am going to backlash and put myself through extreme gym nights, through keeping myself from eating things that I should be able to eat. You should be able to have a balance. You should be able to go into the junk food aisle like other skinny people do and still not have to worry about gaining 20 pounds.
But I don't think skinny people go into this junk food aisle.
They
I think
certainly do.
One of the stupidest things I've heard in this entire discussion, actually. Skinny people don't go to the junk food aisle? What? No. And let me put this very clearly. Just because you are skinny does not mean you are healthy. Just because you are in a certain weight class does not mean you are healthy. You can be unhealthy and be 150 pounds. It's not rocket science. But no, I'm guilty of going to the freaking junk food aisle sometimes because, you have those days, especially when you are, I'll say for me, you're just lazy and you don't want to make food or something. It's yo, let me just go grab a bag of chips or something. Let me go snack on this later. That's why I go to the junk food aisle. And I'm not a fat person. So I don't know where this idea where only fat people go to the junk food, because everybody is buying junk food. There's no exception to the rules. What do you mean? There's no, what? I'm sorry. There's no way that came out of her mouth. Everybody's going to the junk food aisle. Everyone does. There's no, skinny people don't go. No. It should be healthy people don't go to the junk food aisle, not fat people don't go, or sorry, skinny people don't go. But yeah, no, just because it's unhealthy. And by the way, obesity is a huge problem in America, but there's also big stuff like diabetes and stuff. Diabetes doesn't only affect fat people. Fat people are just more susceptible to this stuff. But you can get diabetes when you're skinny, or any other type of disease when you are skinnier. So I don't understand the rhetoric where she said only fat people, or at least skinny people don't go to the junk food aisle. No. That's very much untrue. Not even close.
Can the agreeers please step forward?
I think there's a lot of different struggles when it comes to being a bit bigger, And I have a sister that is very, like, she's 400 pounds and she struggles a lot. She has lymphedema and to shower is really, really hard. So I do think for like an overall happy life and like zero struggle, I think I'd rather be skinny.
I think that it is common in society to want to be skinny. I think the average person typically wants to be skinny. I'm actually surprised that I didn't see more people come forward on that question. People treat you better. It is what is considered the standard of beauty. Your life expectancy is longer. You tend to be healthier.
I'm also really tall. I'm 6'6", so I kind of wish I could just pick a single struggle, because finding the clothes and things like that when you're bigger both ways can make it really hard. So if I was skinnier, at least that's one less thing I have to worry about. But also, I've got 2 kids and a wife, and I'm taking care of them. And as you pointed out, I definitely think that I'm at less health risks if I'm a skinnier person, if I'm a healthier person in that capacity. And I would much rather be that so that I could be around for my kids longer.
Well said, Dominic. I actually have not much else to add to it. But but he's right in the sense that, yes, it is a choice. No matter what it is at the end of the day, you have the choice to fix something. And just because you have the choice, as I've said already, does not mean it's going to be an easy thing to do. It's like maintenance. Your body is not really something you can just let it, let loose. You have to maintain it. And he was totally right. Also, yeah, that girl had a really stupid take about skinny people don't go in the junk food aisle. Oh my god, that didn't make any sense. But yes, it's all about family, and Dominic gets it.
Family, 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 family.
No, no one gets it. Oh, yeah.
Agreeers, please step forward.
I'm speaking as someone who actually was a former smaller person, and I had the most body insecurities when I was small. I was constantly living in fear of gaining weight and having people tell me, oh, don't gain weight, don't do this, make sure that your weight is the same. And once I finally gained weight, I realized that, first off, life wasn't over. I didn't feel any need to not engage in life the previous way that I had, and the attention that I got was different. But even as a smaller person, you get negative attention. And rather than trying to control my body to avoid that negative attention, I would prefer to address the situation as a society, make it more accessible for everybody to where we aren't feeling like I have to be a certain way that's normal in order to be treated like a human being and respected.
If I could counter, because I was a bit bigger when I was younger, and that's when I was the most insecure. I would look in the mirror. I did have family members that were skinny, but then I had a family member that was much bigger. And just the way that I perceived myself, I hated it, and I even became anorexic to like not be big.
Now, remember, as I said over and over again, how people tend to have a lot of baggage, like carried over from stuff, which is why you get to the end results. She just explained it right there. She was younger, she didn't want to be fatter, and then all of a sudden she got fatter, and she's like, oh, I've accepted this. I've been pushing back in society. It's like, not necessarily. This sounds more like a mental health issue than I'm just accepting me being fat the way I am. It's like, no. And also, my problem with this question is it's inherently very odd to ask. Like, I'd rather be skinny than fat. It's kind of like, to me, why can't I just be, I'd rather just be healthy. Like, I'd rather be at a healthy weight instead of being at whatever weight I'm at right now, Or if you're like too skinny or whatever, this and that. Because for me, if I had to like ask this question without, the caveats, it's like, well, yes, I'd rather be skinny. But also, I've never been over like 200, like, not even say 200, but like, yeah, over 200 pounds, like 300 pounds. I've never been morbidly obese, so I don't know what that's like. But based off of studies that I've seen, it's just not a fun time to be, it's not fun to be overweight. People can tell you this like all they want, but in my opinion, people can be as comfortable, but there is some downsides to being fat. Okay? Like, your lifespan, it goes down. Your life expectancy goes down by sometimes up to like 15 years, it said? I know it's like between 10 and 15 years. I'm going to double check that one. So, I just find it's very interesting, though, that, like I've been saying, her baggage from wherever she was, like when she was younger, is still in her adult life to this day. So it's something she didn't really address. Getting fatter was more like a band-aid for that insecurity. And it goes both ways too, because in this video they also talk about the other way. But I just wanted to focus on that aspect in particular because it's interesting.
If your biggest priority is to be at a smaller body, you need to reassess your priorities.
Yeah, not focus on health.
Yeah.
And the immediate tie between skinniness and health, like you emphasized, there is such a gap between the research, because the research has a huge fat phobic bias in it, and there has been research that shows that they aren't, even especially during, let's say, COVID and the correlation between obesity. They rushed through those studies so fast because in society's mind, oh, of course a fat person is going to equal someone who's going to get sick faster, is going to get sick easier. It was an easy jump. So they didn't do all of the testing that they were supposed to do. They didn't check their bias.
Oh my god. Ugh. I hate when they do this. Ugh. It takes away from the conversation that you're trying to have when you start talking about how people are like, oh, these studies have been fat phobic and this and that, and so yeah, we're gonna be talking about how they are biased and they push the studies and the correlation between this and that. It's like, okay, like I've outlined already, and here are some side effects of being overweight. Okay, they're right here in front of you in case you don't know. Looking at these side effects, and then you have to factor in what like COVID-19 does to the body, mind you, and here's what it does right in front of you right here. Adding towards the already unhealthy factor that you are overweight and you're already at risk, you are prone to more risk. Of course, there's a lot of other factors that can factor in, like how your immune system is, all this and that. But what she's basically saying, she's trying to take away from studies who do the research to say, hey, maybe being overweight and having like in COVID is not really a good combination, or like being inside did not help at all for people and might have had people gain more weight. Because think about it this way, when you're inside more, you're not active, like gyms were closed, you're not doing home workouts, you're sitting around and you're not doing much, which allows your body to, build up more fat and you gain more weight. It's like a very simple equation. And also, if you want to talk about like biases and this and that, we can talk about how BMI is very flawed in nature, okay? Because there's a lot of people who have high BMIs that aren't fat, okay? Like a bodybuilder, for example. And so that's why studies like that are very much not biased, but they're not taking into account that maybe the way that we measure obesity is not very good, because the BMI index is not the best system to measure it by. Of course, I don't know any better systems off the top of my head, but that's really where I'm drawing the line here. But no, I hate when people toss the word like fat phobic and this and that into like stuff like actual studies, because it actually annoys me. If you want to say the studies are, I don't know, they're not doing proper research or something, she did say it, but if you're leaning more towards that, then I can understand, your perspective. But at the end of the day, like I've said before, and I'll keep saying it for this video, being fat is not healthy, and COVID does not help that in either. Actually, I want you to tell me, how many people do you know have made it to like 80 being overweight? And think about it. It could be a celebrity, whatever. If it's not that many, then yeah, that's what happens, because as you age, your heart's not very good, your muscles get tired, and being overweight adds towards that. And you're going to tell me that studies are biased when this stuff is literally proven over and over again. Because I can parse through studies over the past 10 years, and I'll probably get roughly the same results. So, I don't know. I just don't like the whole fat phobic idea. That stuff just pisses me.
America has an obesity problem.
Next year.
Oh, absolutely.
First of all, they all literally sat down and agreed with this, but yes, there is an obesity problem in America. And I'll just say, and for my own experience, when I've been to America, it is so easy to get fast food, and the portions are so massive that it's like, wow. Of course, instead of cooking, I can just go to McDonald's real quick and just get something to eat, or go to an Arby's, or go to whatever. There's like a Dunkin' Donuts. It's just that easy. Of course, there's other factors that go into obesity, but yeah, just how accessible fast food is like baffles me every time I'm down in America. Because For example, where I live right now, fast food is around, but you got to go like a little bit of ways to get there. But if I was in America, oh, it'd just be down the corner, and it's just that easy to get. That's a big reason why, fast food is so accessible. Not accessible. It's so, it's so prevalent because it's so easy to get. And people often work off of convenience. So if something's near you, of course you're going to go get it. But I feel like this one's not really that much like to talk about. But I just wanted to point out that, fast food and stuff is very accessible in America. So
Fat shaming is worse than skinny shaming.
So I do agree that fat shaming is worse than skinny shaming. Just overall, entirely, the way that people like comment on people's weight compared to somebody skinny, they usually don't comment on somebody skinny. Yeah. They don't think there's something wrong with them. They don't, like, they'll maybe say like, oh, you're very thin. Do you want to eat a cheeseburger? But that's not as bad as telling somebody you eat 10, stop. And you don't even know that they're eating 10.
Fat shaming is a systemic problem. You're not gonna not get a job because you're too skinny. Skinny bodies are praised in our society, whereas fat bodies, like, I don't get it as often as other people, but I get a lot of comments on my Instagram that are saying like, you're really beautiful, but you would look a lot better if you lost 50, 60 pounds.
I don't agree with like shaming of any kind, because I find shaming just to be very counterproductive in order to like, if you want to help, if your job is to help people and you're shaming them, that doesn't help. You're just putting people down for what that. But I find it interesting that she said that if you are fatter, you're more or less likely to get a job. But it's kind of like, in the context of if I'm in an interview, right, and I have someone I want to hire, this is a construction job, so this is very specific, and I see that you're fat, well, it's kind of like, can you stand up for like 8 to 10 hours a day working on a house? Probably not. Now, I don't know how it works for like office jobs, but I'm just saying, I'm saying that specific field. I don't know really anyone else, any other fields that really will take people down for being fat. That's something I have to look into, because I don't think I've heard of that one before. That's a new one to me. Yeah, it's pretty new actually. I've heard about being turned down for a lot of other reasons, but being fat, I don't know if that one's. And it's just, it's systemic, but like I've been saying, there's been this big old push for fat acceptance, all this and that. But yeah, I don't know. That's a new one to me. I'll have to double check that one. But yeah, shaming of any kind does not help. But the problem with most people who are into this whole like, oh no, fat shame, this does it. They will say something, but then they'll go around and do the same thing. Wasn't Lizzo the one out here talking about like, there have been big girls like me and this and that, and then she was got caught fat shaming her dancers? What? That's the problem with these movements, is that at the end of the day, it feels more like a grift, it feels more like a phase than an actual like movement. But my opinion is always the sense that at the end of the day, accept your circumstances and see how you can change it.
Get a lot of comments on is my masculinity as a man because of how skinny I am. It's always something that I've always kind of dealt with. My favorite comment is always, I look like a sickly ill Victorian child.
I feel like the aliens that were uncovered in Mexico is a little bit more accurate, but that's just me. Oh man. Not that I'm trying to make fun of this guy, but I just thought that's the first thing that popped in my mind. Just like aliens in Mexico, and they unveiled them inside the caskets. Oh, I don't know why I got that idea. And he's not even bald either. Ooh. Oh man, that's messed up. Ooh. People on the internet are way too savage for me. But, oh. Ow.
We're conflating two things as well. So there's a difference between fat shaming and fat discrimination. Fat shaming is an aspect of fat discrimination, but some of the things you were touching on are specifically societal and systemic fat discrimination that goes into our medical system, it goes into employment, it goes into all of our civil rights. As fat people, that skinny people don't necessarily have that same issue. And I come from cultures where they straight out called out skinny people. Oh, you look like bones, oh, flaca, all of that. So I watched my cousins go through it. I went through it when I would get too skinny. As people, we are just too scrutinized when it comes to our bodies. We don't let people live.
But I think that's a good point. You said you were called skin and bones when you got
Not I, my cousin.
your cousin. So people using shame as a motivator to get your cousin to not be too skinny. Shame as a motivator is a powerful tool.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. Also, this freaking girl, not Lauren, but the other one, I find it sounds like a semantic game with this one. It's always like, gotta make a distinction between fat discrimination and fat shaming. It's like, the question was about fat shaming, okay? Shaming people. That was the question. It wasn't about fat discrimination. It just sounds like, oh, so many semantic games. But, no, people have always been that way. Like, I talk from my own experience, like, yo, my family does not play when it comes to, you could be the most like buff, roided up man, or be like have the perfect body, and they will still find a way, because people will find cracks in anything that you do, even if you are literally perfectly fine. Like on the outside, people will find cracks in it, and so yeah, my family is just ruthless. Oh, you gotta know how to take some jokes, which is why, like, especially now, I can definitely take jokes much better than I used to. Whew. But about the whole shaming as a motivator. Yes and no. I'm going to say yes and no. And hear me out. I'm saying yes and no because while some people can look at other people and be like, wow, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be like this. So I'm obviously not going to go in that route. But at the same time, shaming can be very negative because you're already pushing on insecurities. As everybody here basically has said, they have insecurities that they've had since they were younger. So because those insecurities are already there, shaming is not really what's going to get people out of the rut. So I wouldn't say you should shame people, or it should be something that should be used. It should be something where, like, you have to show them the proper avenues in order to get the help that they need. That's how I see it. So suggestions are always good, but also don't make suggestions that aren't necessary. And this is something that actually annoys me. People, even as I don't care how good your intention, if your suggestions are not necessary to be said at the moment, don't fucking say them. Why would you want to say that? Oh, it pisses me off when people do that, especially when I'm focused in on a task. Like when I'm like locked in to do something and somebody comes in and be like, oh my God, you should do this way. It's like, shut up. I'm working. So some people don't need your suggestions, but that was a side tangent aside. You know, shaming, like I said, it's very counterproductive. But yeah, suggestions are good. And like advice is also great. But if also someone's not looking to lose weight, then you can't really shame them into doing it. As a matter of fact, if the will to do something is not already there, then they had no intention of doing it from the start. All right? If there's no desire to lose weight, then it's not going to happen. Shaming them is not going to do it. Shaming them will probably propel them even more, like, radically. But I digress. Yes, I don't know if I agree with that. That one I don't really agree with that much, actually. I said yes and no at the beginning. I actually don't agree with them when I mentioned it. Yes, I'm all about suggestions.
So the reason I sit over there is fat shaming worse than skinny shaming. Well, you could argue that shaming somebody in order to motivate them towards a healthy lifestyle is actually a good thing. Now, I have a lot of empathy because hearing your story about how you've been struggling with this since you were a child.
Since I was like a newborn baby, like health, just everything's just been on that end where I've never known anything about being skinny or being fit or being athletic. I've never known anything about that.
Probably your situation, I don't think shame necessarily would motivate you, but for somebody where it is a option, so for instance, if you watch TLC, you watch My 600 Pound Life, 1,000 Pound Sisters, Family by the Ton, all of them can do it. All of them have had this systemic issue of weight gain.
Though I have watched those like as a younger person, and it would make me feel disgusted with me when I was a kid, so it would make me worse, and it made my mental health worse. Because then I'm like, is that how like everybody automatically views me as just like somebody who's oversized and could possibly never even attain it because it's so just common?
I don't think we should shame anyone to do anything.
No.
I think everyone deserves to like themselves enough to like enjoy life. And if you do that as a fat person, okay. If you do it as a skinny person, also chill. It's not my business.
Shame is a broad category. I do think shame works in some cases. I think that there has been good fat shaming towards me and bad fat shaming. Bad fat shaming is just, you know, somebody just saying you're fat, things like that. That doesn't really work. But what does work is somebody looking at me and saying, don't you want to be around for your kids? And that worked.
I don't think
that
that's
worked.
shaming.
Yeah, like, do you
though.
consider that shaming?
I do. I think that's shaming. I think they were telling me like you should lose weight to be around for your children. I think that's shame. Like an attempt to like try and say something bad about me.
Like they're
like, to
personalizing
encourage me.
it towards you and towards your kids. Like,
Sure.
of course, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that worked. I think that worked. That really encouraged me to go to the gym and start trying to lose weight.
But that's you though.
Sure.
Like,
I think you have to be specific to the person.
I think that's one thing is it depends on the person.
Sure,
And if someone wants to shame me and like, you know, it depends on the person. I've been shamed a couple times and it's kicked me into gear to try to gain weight, but it's still really hard.
Sure.
And it's, you know, it depends on who you are, I think.
Yeah, honestly, they really said everything that I just said before I even got to it. Ooh, I'm just glad though that actually that people kind of see it that way instead of just looking at it like, oh, you know, this is fan shaming, this and that. Oh. No, yo, Sonny, my guy, yo, go coming and swinging at Dominic. Woo, deadly stuff. Ooh, don't swing at my boy. Nah, I'm kidding. This was actually surprisingly civil for a Jubilee video. Sometimes they get like, you know, back and forth and stuff, but I actually like this one. It was pretty interesting. Of course, this video is almost 40 minutes long, so I did watch all of it. I'm only going over the parts that I thought were most interesting. If you guys want to watch the last portion of it, you can. I'll link the original video down below. But yeah, no. Just to wrap up the whole idea of like shaming, I just find that, yeah, of course for him, like his kids and stuff were important, and that's what really got him going, and not really shaming. That feels more like a guilt trip to me than, you know, a shame. But I guess it probably might fall into the category, but who knows. Anyways, yeah, no, really and truly, suggestions are much better than shaming. You can suggest it instead of saying, maybe if you want to lose weight, you can go to the gym. That's not really like a shameful thing to say. It's like an actual tangible thing you can tell somebody. You could tell somebody that. You don't need to tell somebody. You don't have to like make fun of them to get it done. But also, what are your intentions as well? If your intention is to make fun of somebody, then then saying going to the gym is not really very insulting. Okay, it might feel insulting to the person, but it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not very insulting. If your intention is to give some actual guidance, then yeah, that's that. Yeesh, my God, man, no, I just find the whole idea of like this, the whole obesity problem, it's very, it feels very touchy to touch upon it, just because it's like, especially how prominent it's become in the last few years. But I always stick to the side of evidence, and if evidence shows that it's not healthy to be fat, then I don't want to aspire to be that. Of course, if your field like demands, like if you're a football player, you got to be like bigger, but the bigger doesn't mean you have to be fatter, you know? And like being morbidly obese, unless you're a sumo wrestler, is not very beneficial. And that's how I see it. So it's very interesting to see people talk about it. Also, it's very much like a mental health thing, in my opinion, as you heard the various stories, which is exactly what it came across to me. So there's a lot of internal stuff that people need to work on. But it's a slow road, and eventually everyone will get to where they need to get to. But if you enjoy these longer form discussion videos, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow my socials down in the description below. And of course, if you dislike, you are